Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show 2024-25 edition for the first review show of the season. And as you can see, I'm joined by our very own Peter Weiss, based over in the land of the free at the minute. Peter, how are you doing over there?
Doing okay, Mark. I wish I was over there in the Bundesrepublik, but we'll commemorate that soon enough. I'll be sure to bring my flags to wave as props when we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we've enjoyed a fantastic first weekend of the season as well, haven't we? I mean, obviously, it wasn't the actual Bundesliga itself this weekend, but we've enjoyed the SuperCup. We've had the fantastic first round of the DFB Pokal as well, which is, for me, one of the most memorable days on the calendar, really, in the Bundesliga season. Absolutely fantastic weekend, which we're going to talk through in more detail as well. But yeah, let me just remind you as well that we are sponsored by Bundesliga Boxes, the fantastic company run by Rich over in the UK. Myself and him met up as well in the summer, which was a fantastic event just before the Euros. Had a few drinks with him in Nuremberg. So yeah, remember to buy his stuff as well. Fantastic boxes. He collects his stuff from all over Germany. And I've seen him hard at work as well, trying to get his stuff together, which is a fantastic thing to see. And we've also got the kind of advance code as well. So check out the link for the advance code for the latest batch as well in the description for this show. And obviously, we are also sponsored by Bully News as well. Runa's fantastic journal, really, you could say, for the Bundesliga. Obviously, Peter writes for them as well. He's kind of our go-to man from there as well. So remember to check them out, the fantasticbullynews.com as well, for all of your up-to-date Bundesliga news. But yeah, Peter, what can you say? I mean, it's been a brilliant start to the season, hasn't it? Like, fantastic weekend of football. Really, really enjoyed watching it. We've obviously missed it with a pretty late start as well to the Bundesliga season this year. But I mean, you could say the curtain raiser really for the season was that SuperCup match, wasn't it? I mean, it's always a game that I personally find really entertaining, the winners of the league against the winners of the cup. But obviously, because Leverkusen won both tournaments last year, Stuttgart were kind of invited to play the match effectively. It was the first SuperCup match without Bayern Munich since 2011, incredibly as well. And for me, it was a game that didn't disappoint at all, Peter. I mean, obviously, it ended a 2-2 draw with Leverkusen taking it on penalties. But I'll throw it straight over to you, Peter. What did you make of this one? And did this game serve as a good curtain raiser for the season?
Well, it's yes, as you mentioned, it was the first Super Cup not to feature Bayern for some 13 years. And as a result, there was a little bit more interest in it in the Bundesrepublik. The Super Cup is sort of the German version of the Community Shield, which means that there is a lack of interest, and there was also protests from my brothers, my German brethren, the ultra groups. Several ultra groups from both sides decided to boycott the match, most notably the Cannstatter Commandos in Stuttgart and Nordkurve 12 in Leverkusen. But those are just a small sample. Of course, every club has dozens upon dozens of ultra groups. Some of them have approaching 100, and many of them did come out in force to the Bayer Arena to witness what was a pretty damn good match, I have to say. It got us excited about the season. It got us excited about the prospects of both teams, who have undergone some fairly extensive off-season overhauls in the personnel department. Leverkusen bringing on some of their fresh players. Not the best debut for Michael Terrier, exactly. But we got a chance to see Belocian, this new Jean-Noël Belocian, his French counterpart, and also Alex Garcia in midfield. And both of them, that might have been the two best Leverkusen players on the pitch. And with Stuttgart, of course, with Guirassy gone and also Captain Waldemar Anton moving over to Dortmund, we got a chance to see what the new look Swabians are going to look like, with Ermedin Demirovic, the former Freiburg and Augsburg professional, spearheading the attack. And a totally new backline or central defensive partnership, I should say, with Jeff Chabot and Anthony Wout. Yeah, if I can say that. anyways, I suppose I'll turn it over to you to tell our viewers, those who didn't happen to catch the match, maybe just the highlights, how it went.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the main talking points as well is that new season, no change with Leverkusen with the late goals yet again. And it's the king of the late goals, Paddy Schick, as we call him on this channel, who banged in that late equaliser. What fantastic scenes that was again. I mean, for me, to be honest, I thought Leverkusen played really well, despite the red card from the Terrier, as they've already nicknamed him, the little Scottish Terrier, I think, over there in midfield, with a pretty horrible challenge. I thought the way that Leverkusen played for long periods was very good with 10 men against a very, very capable side in VfB Stuttgart. But what can we expect, Peter? I mean, obviously, as things stand, we've not really seen any major departures from Leverkusen. Obviously, Jonathan Tah also making an appearance off the bench. Long expected to leave FC Bayern München as well over the summer, but he's still there. He looked fired up for this game. Can we expect to see any players leave Leverkusen, do you think? Or do you think they're going to stay strong for the whole summer?
Well, yeah, it seemed like a foregone conclusion that Ta was going to leave, and also that they were going to sell Jerry Frimpong, who came off the bench. I don't know if you mentioned him. But yeah, I really don't know. I mean, when it comes to Jonathan Tah transfer rumors at this juncture, please excuse my phone going off once again. It's just been back and forth so much that I think both Rune and I are exhausted by it. We don't know. We don't want to know. It looks to be the case that he's going to stay. It also looks to be the case that Edmund Tapsoba is going to stay. Hopefully he can keep his hands off of Demirovic's neck, unlike what he did in the Super Cup there. So in Leverkusen, you have a team that hasn't really lost any key actors, and it doesn't look like they're going to lose any key actors either. A lot can happen now between now and the close of the transfer window, and a lot of these players may be pushing for a transfer if they're not guaranteed solid playing prospects within the squad. For the time being, the only transfer rumor that I have that I'm certain about is going to be for Gustavo Puerta, who is either going to go to Brøndby or Hull City. The other ones, I mean, there's transfer rumors surrounding Frimpong. There's ones surrounding Ta. There's one surrounding Tapsoba. There's also one surrounding Kosunu. But I just don't know at this point. I mean, these have been going on all summer, and they've gone back and forth. I think, given their choice, most of the players do want to follow Xabi Alonso's lead and stay with the team. Xabi shocked us all by saying that he wanted to remain with Leverkusen because he felt like he had unfinished business, despite the fact that he won the double last season. And the players have a lot of respect for their very, very well tactically heeled coach, and they want to stay and they want to go after more trophies. Well, the trophy that they want to go after that they haven't won yet would be the Champions League one, or the Europa League one. If I don't know, we don't do referrals anymore under the new Swiss system, I don't think so. But in any event, yes, I expect that there's going to be a lot of rumors, but I don't know that there's going to be a lot of action on the Leverkusen side. Some of the players may be persuaded to stay, even if they're not guaranteed minutes in the starting 11 in the league every week, because of course there's going to be rotations needed for this new Swiss Champions League system and the Pokal as well. So, I mean, I think this team largely stays together, which is a lot different than Stuttgart. But what did you make? I know that Rory's not with us this evening. Rory will be doing the fantasy show with Rune tomorrow, so I suppose you'll have to act as Rory's Stuttgart stand-in and offer up some of your comments on the new look Stuttgart, which has a lot of changes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really good performance, all said and done. I did enjoy Chabot's performance at the back. I mean, obviously the signing from FC Köln, he's very wholehearted. You know, I guess he's a replacement for Valdemar Anton, who's obviously moved on to the BVB as well. See BVB David checking in as well there, so I'm sure he's happy about that one. But yeah, I felt as though he was good. He's a little bit rash, he's a little bit raw. You know, he ended up getting booked for a bit of a slap on one of the Leverkusen players as well. But I do believe he's a positive signing. I think he was full-blooded, you know, and he did look good on his debut. I feel as though, Demirovic, hit and miss, I would say, really. And I'm still not quite sure what to make of the signing of him, because I guess he's been brought in to replace Guirassy, but he's a very different kind of striker to Guirassy for me. He's got he's a much shorter striker. He's got a lower sense of gravity, and he's a very strong guy, you know. But is his finishing as good? According to this performance, no, basically, because he did miss a few chances. But obviously, from his days at Augsburg, you know, being an FC Augsburg sympathizer myself, you know, I did see the good side of him over 2 seasons there. So he does seem to be a positive signing. But, you know, in this particular performance, he missed probably a few too many chances for the VfB liking. I think the signing of Undav is massive. I really do. I think Dennis Undav is just a fantastic player, and to bring him in for 25 million euros is one hell of a coup for them. I mean, I do feel as though Brighton wanted to keep him. They obviously saw a lot of potential in him, but he wanted to join the VfB, you know, whether that's because of Champions League or whether it's just because of the club, his connection with the fans, I don't know, but probably a mixture of both, I would imagine. But he is the signing of the season so far for me. The fact they managed to get him, they paid out a lot of money, but they also received a lot of money for the likes of Guirassy, Anton, and Ito as well. So it's not like they've really gone that deep into the bank for that. So yeah, overall, I think it was a good performance from Stuttgart. I think they will be disappointed to lose the game in the end, because, you know, for leading it so long and against 10 men, yeah, sometimes we've talked about it before, teams need to get over the line. In football, you know, we can talk about tactics, we can talk about individual players, but towards the end of a game of football, you need to do what you got to do to get over the line. And Stuttgart, as in the league game last season, just a few months ago, they weren't able to do that going into the last stages in the Bayer Arena. So they will be disappointed about that. But I think performance-wise, they were very good. They don't look weakened at all on last season based on this performance. And I think they could challenge for top 4, and who knows, even the title. I don't think it's completely impossible we could see the VfB challenge for the title based on this performance. But yeah, hello to Rory as well, checking in there. Yeah, he's obviously a little bit disappointed and thinks he should have won the SuperCup. Yeah, but it is Leverkusen after all. You can never rule them out. Yeah, BVB David says Alex Garcia might be an all right enough signing for Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah, he's definitely a player that puts in a good set piece. I would say that much. You know, obviously he was influential for the first goal, and he's going to be a player that, you know, they look to for those set plays this year, isn't he? And he's a bit of a set piece expert from what I can gather. So it's going to be interesting to see whether he takes free kicks or Grimaldo, because we know Grimaldo as well knows how to take a free kick based on last season. But I thought it was a solid enough debut, not a perfect debut, but he was good in the match. And hello to Erin as well, checking in from Philly. Hello over there. Yeah, great to see our American supporters as well. So yeah, I think we're going to move on now to the DFB Pokal, which is the main focus of this show. You know, as I've mentioned before, it was the first weekend of this fantastic competition this weekend. For me, a brilliant, probably now the best cup competition in the world, I would say, domestic cup competition, after the English FA basically destroyed the FA Cup in the last few years. But yeah, let's get started. So there were so many good ties, but we're going to mostly focus on the ones that were closer and led to a few more, you know, a few shocks as well, and a few near misses as well for the smaller teams. So yeah, let's start with the game, the derby, really, in between the Hessen and the Rheinhessen. So yeah, let's have a look at this one. Wien Wiesbaden, das ist mein Verein. We had to get that one in there as well. Myself and Peter were there last year. It was a great occasion, really, for the Wiesbadener, wasn't it? Relegated to the 3rd tier last season, unfortunately, in a tight playoff against Jan Regensburg. But they were given a fantastic welcome to this season against local rivals, really, Mainz 05 of the Bundesliga. Peter, I mean, this was a great game. It was a great atmosphere, you know, two stands of Mainz fans as well. I mean, those people that say Mainz are a tin pot club, you have to watch this, because they had a massive following of this game, loud. You know, they're really up for this season under Henriksen, aren't they? I mean, Peter, what did you make of this one? And who would you say Wiesbaden were unlucky to lose this one?
Well, something that got me very hyped and psyched for the start of the season. I mean, the DFB Pokal is sometimes referred to as a soft opener, but watching Bo Henriksen do his Rumpelstiltskin thing before kickoff, this man is running around, jumping around, dancing around. He has a little bit of a pot belly. I don't know if he how he does it exactly physically, but him getting the team hyped and psyched for the start of competitive play was obviously that I knew at that moment on Friday night that German football was back. You know, we have a lot of personal connections to this match, you and I do, in that not only did we go see Wiesbaden at their little stadium there, but we also had a chance to check out Armindo Sieb from Greuther Fürth several times last season. And I think that he may be one of the most important signings of this season, the German Youth International. Bayern exercised a buyback clause on him and then loaned him out to Mainz. And the man is the young man is an incredible physical specimen. He kind of looks like Xherdan Shaqiri and Romelu Lukaku had a love child or something. And I mean, I think that's, you know, with him sort of buttressing that attack. You know, I saw a 3-4-3 from Henriksen, and you had Sieb and Jae-Sung Lee right behind a healthy Johnny Burkhardt, who I do recall you were writing off at one point last season.
True.
That is a hell of an attack. And Sieb and Kaishu Sanu, this new Japanese edition, who was brought in, they were combining already with a great chance early on. So you could see that those two can really, really click as the midfield play progresses to the attacking third. So I'm very, very excited about Mainz this season, particularly after watching this match. It was, you know, Mainz have had a lot of losses this season. Brajan Gruda, as we all know, has just completed a 30 to $40 million move to Brighton. Leandro Barreiro has left. He's gone to Benfica. Sepp Vandenberg has gone back to Liverpool. There's been probably 5,000 transfer rumors involving Sepp Vandenberg this summer about which German club he may potentially be going back to. I don't think the Reds are going to let him go. But I think Mainz they responded to their losses over the summer incredibly here. You have Sieb, you have Sano, and then you have this defensive core, which, I mean, it just look with Dominic Kor, who's hardcore, who's naturally a midfielder, Maxim Leitch and Hanko Olsen there. So this looks to be a team that is strong in all areas at the very, very beginning of the campaign. It oftentimes takes teams a lot of time to gel. So I would say actually that Mainz were a little bit unlucky that they didn't score earlier in the extra time period. There were several cases in which they just didn't have the luck, and then they got a little bit lucky when the last two goals came late in the second extra time period, and they were able to avoid penalties. Lots of promising stuff though from Mainz here throughout this match, including the fact that the sort of de facto captain Nadia Mamiri was very, very strong on set pieces, and Bo Henriksen's set piece designs look very, very good. So yes. Noting my slight Danish bias, since I work for a Danish website, in mind, I think that this was a great debut from the Rheinhessen, who happen to be my Pfälzer rivals from FC Kaiserslautern. Yeah, and thank you for bringing up the point that it's kind of a regional rivalry too. I mean, there's only 10 kilometers as the crows fly separating these two clubs. So I thought this was one of many great offerings that we had this weekend. But Friday night was just an incredible blockbuster. And I know that you selected some of the other Friday night fixtures to talk about as well. I'll hand it over to you and see which one you'd like to talk about next. I mean, obviously you may have something to add to my analysis of this one. But yeah, I'll turn it back over to you in any event.
No, I think you pretty much summed it up perfectly there. Yeah, similar thoughts. Really. I thought Mainz looked really good in attack, and I totally agree with your point on Sieb. He was a player that I kind of earmarked in our predictions. That I think he's one of the signings of the season. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing him in the Bundesliga. It's quite ironic, isn't it, Peter? Because obviously when we were in Wiesbaden, Armando Sieb played in that game as well, and he banged in 2 brilliant goals as well. And we were like, this guy has to be playing Bundesliga next season. And sure enough, Bayern, via a kind of weird situation with Bayern, he rolls up at Mainz. So, yeah, I think Mainz have done really, really well to get the stocky forward, and he's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think obviously about Henriksen, what a character he is as well. Like obviously when Wiesbaden went ahead early on, he came out onto the side of the pitch with his tactics board and stuff like that. He's just a fantastic character. Like I think I said it last season, but he reminds me of like a medieval king or something like that. Like he's got this kind of hair with like, he's just a superb character, isn't he? And the pot belly to go with it. He's just a brilliant character, yeah. And I can't wait to watch him this season, really. Like I hope he enjoyed his meal with his wife because, it's back to business now. And, obviously his first full season as a coach in the Bundesliga, and really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And I think I tipped Mainz to finish 9th, I think we had. And I do believe that they got a good squad despite the losses, as you mentioned, of Gruder and Barrero. I believe they've strengthened well and they can go and, reconsolidate themselves as a mid-table Bundesliga side for me. But yeah, let's move on to the next game. And it is probably the shock of the round, really, this one. And it happened in the Oberpfalz, not too far from me in my beloved Bavaria. In the strange part of Bavaria, they call it, though, the Oberpfalz in these parts. Yeah, with the strangest German accent you can possibly imagine. But yeah, Regensburg, fantastic city, by the way. For anyone who loves travel, you have to get yourselves down to Regensburg. I think, Peter, we need to get there this season as well. Obviously, we saw them away at SSV Ulm last year as well, didn't we? But we've never been over there to the city and seen them. But this wasn't the first time they've caused a shock as well in recent years in the Pokal. They did knock out Köln on penalties a few years ago as well. So this is not the first time that they've managed to pull off a shock in the Oberpfalz before. Newly promoted to the second league, obviously via the playoffs last year against Wien Wiesbaden, ironically. But they did a job on Bochum, didn't they, Peter? And Peter, I've got to call you out on this one. They were your shot. They were your tips for the kind of dark horse of the season in the Pokal. What happened, Peter?
Well, I have some interesting factoids for you first. As of this recording, only one top-tier side is out. And the only other time that happened was in 2002 when Hertha lost. This is weird. Ordinarily, you get at least 3 to 4 Bundesliga sides out in the first round. That is actually one reason why the Pokal is a highly intriguing domestic cup competition. But I selected VfL Bochum, I have to own this, as not only the surprise of this DFB Pokal round, but I was preparing myself to be a Bochum booster ahead of this season for several reasons. The first among them was that they had an excellent summer transfer window. They really did. What they did is, on a shoestring budget, as this small Revere club is, they brought in several players on free transfers that have high market values. Ibrahima Sissoko from Racing Strasbourg, Danny De Witt, the attacking midfielder from AZ Alkmaar. He's sort of been slotted in as Kevin Stöger's replacement. They also brought in a couple of promising guys, Samuel Bamba and Nicholas Jahn from your boys Nuremberg, the second one there. And then in the last few days leading up to the Pokal, they signed another valuable striker, Myron Baudu from Monaco, and an Aliou Balde, another attacker from Nice. So, as a matter of fact, if you add all of this up, I was just doing this as I was looking at Bochum's season. They've gotten players with a combined estimated market worth of nearly 20 million euros for nothing. And I thought to myself, this was really just an ingenious coup. But they also had a very, very strong preseason. I think that they won one match 4-0. They won another one 6-1. They won another one. They really were looking good in preseason. It looked like they had put together an excellent team. I have some excuses for why this didn't work in the opening Pokal round. David couldn't play yet. He was still serving a suspension from his time in Holland last year. Baudu and Balde weren't ready yet. They had only just been signed last week. Ordets, who they signed to a permanent deal this summer, the Ukrainian, he was missing due to injury. So we had a lot of factors kind of working against them. And the one debutante that I got a chance to look at, Sissoko, who was sort of working as a holding six / semi sweeper in midfield, he actually did do a very good job organizing the play. And they had some bad luck. They struck the post of, I think, a couple of times. The keeper, the Regensburg keeper, made an excellent save on both Matus Beru and Maximilian Wittek. There were a couple of instances in which Philipp Hoffmann and Moritz Brzezinski, the striker tandem, could have hoped for a goal were it not for some nice goalkeeping work from what is the guy's name? Gabe Hart. Yeah, I believe is his name. So and they only lost by 1 goal. So I want to prepare everybody for how this is going to work this season. Okay. Peter is backing VfL Bochum to get better and to potentially avoid the relegation race, because I think they had a great offseason on the transfer market. I think they also did the right thing, because they had this like dual sporting director role between Patrick Fabian and Mark Lettau. Fabian left, and now Lettau is in control himself, so they don't necessarily have to do decisions by committee. I don't know if Peter Seidler was the best choice to coach this team. At the age of 62, this is his first Bundesliga gig as a head coach. Maybe they just picked him, as I was joking in our group chat yesterday, because he looks like Thomas Lech a little bit in terms of the fact that he's a power bald. But I mean, I am not prepared to give up on them just yet. I know it was a disastrous start to the season, but they played a good preseason. They have good additions, and I think that they will improve. Perhaps much to the chagrin of a lot of people who don't really care about Bochum, don't like Bochum, think it's a shithole on par with Gelsenkirchen, as the English fans would put it. But I think, yes, I'm not prepared to give up on them just yet. And as Mark and I plan out some of our vlogs for the coming seasons, obviously we want to go to Bochum. We want to show people Bochum. We want to show people what it's like there deep in the Ruhrpott. So yes, get ready for a lot of Bochum apologist work from me in the coming season.
Yeah, you've always been a bit of a fan of Bochum, haven't you, Peter? You always tip them to do well. But to be honest, I'm inclined to agree with you on a lot of points that you mentioned. I think in the predictions the other week, Rory was convinced they were going down in the bottom 2. But I think I had them down as the playoff spot. But they are still building that squad at the minute. As you say, since then, they brought in another couple of decent-looking signings. I think I've got only a couple of worries, really, about Bochum. First of all, the coach, as you mentioned, because to say he's obscure is an understatement, basically. It seems like they've just basically gone to any random coach and said, okay, you can do the job this year. Because to say he's not got much of a track record is an understatement, really. But yeah, we've got to give him time. This is a bad start, but they did have a lot of bad luck, to be honest, as you say. Another concern I've got about them is a striker, because I used to rate Philipp Hoffmann, but I don't know what's happened to him the last few months, to be honest. Like, he's had a very bad year. 2024 has just been a disaster for him, basically. And I think if they're going to be relying on him as the number 1 striker, You know what I mean? It's a little bit worrying. But Brzezinski puts himself in good positions, but he doesn't have that finishing touch as well. So, but as you mentioned, we will see the likes of Boadu and Bamba come in there, and maybe they could be the missing link. But particularly the Sissoko and De Ligt signings really stood out as well. When I was studying the transfer market, I was shocked that a team like Bochum could get, players worth 6-7 million, based on transfer markets. Very reliable estimations. I mean, it's a very, very good coup, really, for Bochum. And with the squad, they probably are better than 3 or 4 teams, really, at least. So we'll be interested to see what they can do. But this day belonged to Regensburg. Congratulations to my Bavarian brothers. And, obviously, they've made a good start to the season in the Zweite Liga as well. So we'll have to see what they can do over the next 7-8 months or so. Yeah, let's move on to the next game, which was a weird game, to say the least, to be honest. At times, I thought when I was watching this game, I thought I was watching a Regionalliga Süd game, to be honest. And it was between Würzburg and Hoffenheim. But the problem is one of the teams is Regionalliga, and that was the hosts, Würzburg Kickers. Another place that's not far from myself in Nuremberg at all. Been a regular visitor over there to another fantastic German city, Würzburg. But the Kickers here, they made Hoffenheim look like a poor side, to be honest, for long periods. I mean, obviously they had a rookie keeper in the young Philip, who, let's just say he didn't cover himself in glory is an understatement as well, because he had a disaster of a game, and he gave them the first goal and probably should have given them another couple of goals as well to Würzburg if they could have capitalized on that. I mean, the Hoffenheim equaliser was a bit of a comedy cut as well, in truth, the first equaliser. I mean, this was a great game to watch. It was in a stadium where I don't think there's any seating at all. It was like a ground from the 1980s in England, and it was just a full packed out crowd. Even Hoffenheim have brought a fair few over for this game, which is saying something. But yeah, I just thought it was a fun game to watch. But if you're Hoffenheim, Peter, you're going to be pretty worried based on that performance.
Well, Hoffenheim are headed for disaster. They are a huge implosion candidate thanks to the front office chaos that has gone on. Longtime sporting director Alexander Rosen was surprisingly sacked a couple weeks back at a crucial point in the summer transfer window. And all of a sudden, Frank Kramer, whom you may recall as the Arminia Bielefeld and FC Schalke 04 trainer, head coach, I should say, was brought in to lead the Hoffenheim Academy, and he was suddenly elevated to the post of sporting director. And I have to say, as a writer of, on Bully News, I am exhausted reporting on failed Hoffenheim transfers. I well and truly am. I mean, they are failing in every last regard to shore up this squad. Obviously, there's been an exception in the last 72 hours. They did get Hlocek from Leverkusen. So they at least have another striker that they can run up there with Marius Bülter, who supplied the one good offensive play from Hoffenheim in this entire match. They were horrible. They were wretched. They couldn't really put together anything of danger until Bülter supplied that amazing piece of skill. And things could get better. Once you have Hlocek and Bülter working up front there, they still, we talked about this so many times last season that you have all of these players playing out of position in Hoffenheim. And it looks to be the case that some of these injuries and some of these losses actually might help them. The fact that Ilas Bebu is injured is going to force them to get an actual right wing back. The fact that Jurasek is injured is going to force them to get an actual left wing back. So, it could come together for them. They are, after all, German European representatives, but that's thanks to the fact that half the field qualified for Europe last year. And, they're still in trouble. They still got players playing out of position. They still have Prömel playing way too deep in this one to make an impact. Anton Stach is all the way in the central defensive core. He's an inverted central defender now. And, shame on them for letting John Anthony Brooks go. I mean, they need all of this help in all of these different areas. And it's just, the front office is in chaos. They can't seal important transfer deals. I mean, they finalized the buyer sale and they got Hlocek. So yeah, Kramer was able to sell off one of his strikers at a reasonable rate, and then bring in another one, at a reasonable rate. He's had those two successes, but other than that, I've gotten to the point now where whenever there's a transfer rumor about Hoffenheim, I'm not reporting on it for Bully News, because I don't see any point in reporting on it if it's going to fail. They've so many transfers have failed for them in the front offices. And another thing I'll say about Hoffenheim, as bad as they played in this match, and they played pretty damn. I mean, this was by no means a performance befitting of a top tier Bundesliga side. Why does Pellegrino Matarazzo want to stay in charge of this team? Is it because the U.S. men's national team is an even worse job? That could possibly be the case. But I think, something, I mean, even with Hlocek, I think Hoffenheim factor into the relegation race this year. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was just going to say about the man with two surnames, Pellegrino Matarazzo. I mean, I thought he was a shoo-in to go to the US men's national team, because think about it, the World Cup coming, all the kind of euphoria around that. A pretty easy gig, let's be honest, because international football really isn't the same level as club football. He could just kind of sit around playing friendlies the next 2 years, and then, if all goes wrong in the World Cup, he'll get a massive payoff, basically. But yeah, I was also shocked to see that. Obviously, they've gone for Pochettino, which is probably a bit of a step up from good old Matarazzo. But I also don't know what he's doing there, to be honest, because it's been a club in turmoil for a while now, really, and they just don't seem to know what a centre-back is at that club. I don't know. I mean, they let John Anthony Brooks go for seemingly no reason, really. They obviously weren't happy with his performances, but at least he could actually play in centre-half. They obviously let Nsoki go as well, who was pretty poor in truth. But still, I mean, what are they going to do about that position? They only ever seem to sign strikers. It's just like striker. Let's not forget they've also got Berisha on the books as well, who's barely played for them after the ACL injury last season. He came on, but to say it's an unbalanced squad is an understatement. I mean, if you're Anton Stach, you've gone from the fringes of the German national team to the Hoffenheim defense, basically in the space of a year. So, I mean, he's going to want to go back. He must be begging good old Henriksen, please sign me back. You know what I mean? Because to say his career has gone down the pot is an understatement, really. But anyway, it's not really his own fault, because he's a good player in his own right. It's just mismanagement at the club, really. So I agree, Hoffenheim, what can you say about them anymore? I just don't know, to be honest. And the squad just looks so imbalanced at the minute. And you could be right, Peter, what you say. They're going to be forced now to finally sign defenders and wing-backs. So we'll have to see. There's obviously 2 weeks or so left of the transfer window. But I think if they go into the season with this squad, then they can't finish in the top half, basically. And with European football as well, that squad is going to get worn out, particularly the midfield and defence positions, which are very, very light at the minute. Why he wants to stay, I really don't know. Maybe good old Dietmar Hopp is paying him pretty well in that part of the world. I don't know, but that's the only reason I can think why he wants to stay. But I think myself and Rory put Hoffenheim top half this season, but we expected more signings would come in. And also the Bayer transfer kind of came out of nowhere, really, in many ways, didn't it? So the loss of him, who was so brilliant for them last season, and just the complete disarray, really, of the squad. And yeah, they could be back in a relegation dogfight, which is where good old Pellegrino Matarazzo first came into them as well 18 months ago. But going to be interesting to watch them this season anyway. So let's move on to the final and probably the best game of the weekend, really. A pretty crazy match in the east part of Germany in a good old school Soviet town of Halle. Basically a bit of a thriller, to be honest, in this match, I felt. Halle 2, St. Pauli 3. I mean, again, this is another one. If you watch this game, you would have thought that it was like a Zweite game, maybe, because Halle did play above their level. I thought they played some really good stuff and were unlucky not to win the game. I mean, the first goal was a great move, and they played well. Big respect to the East Germans for that performance. And they are a Regionalliga side, incredibly, as well, but they didn't play like one at all. But for Pauli, I mean, they did score some nice goals, particularly the winner was a nice goal with that beautiful ball in from the wing and the header. But Peter, I mean, if you're a Pauli fan, obviously they've lost the manager who did so well with them over the 18 months that he was there. They brought in a man who's pretty inexperienced, I would say. They've obviously lost Hartel as well to the US, to good old St. Louis City. I mean, what was he thinking there? But anyway, what would you say, Peter? If you were a St. Pauli fan watching this game, would you be worried about the season ahead?
Well, I can refer everyone to Rory and I's welcome to St. Pauli and Holstein Kiel. And we did that 1 week ago today. We recorded that, which I was very, very positive on the Keats kicker. I think that they also had a very good off-season transfer market, and they had a very good preseason training camp, a preparation campaign. I think they won all but one of their test fixtures. Something I was shocked to learn was that St. Pauli fans can probably look at this as a success. Every other time that they were promoted to the Bundesliga top flight, and they've been promoted 4 times now, they lost their opening Pokal match. So they finally won their first Pokal match as a top flight Bundesliga side in 5 tries. And you could see, I think, even though some of the you could see how Alexander Blessen is moving his pieces into place. And he has good pieces from the transfer market. One of the problems was that I think Finn Stevens, the Welsh right back, who arrived not too long ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, he didn't really seem to be on the level yet. He didn't seem to be prepared yet. And this young American kid, who I made his acquaintance when I was doing some work for a scouting academy a while back. His name is Jojo Richardson II. Cool. He really gave that right hand side of St. Pauli an awful lot of trouble. Johannes Eggestein was, of course, very forward thinking, but Stevens and Wahl and another guy that we saw many times play for Fürth last season, Robert Wagner, who was on loan from Freiburg, and Freiburg reloaned him out to Pauli. They didn't quite seem to be on the level just yet. So what happened was that Blessen tried to run with this 3-5-2 that was just hacked to pieces by Richardson and Okono, all of these guys who there's a lot of familiar names there on Chemie Halle. Oh, excuse me, it's not Chemie Halle anymore. It's Hallische FC. Speaking of East German heritage there, I sometimes call some of the East German teams by their old factory names. And Halle used to be Chemie or Chemical Halle. So another place we got to visit. But in any event, there was a pretty good tactical tweak when he employed a quadruple substitution with about 20 minutes or so to play in normal time. And he brought on Afolayan, Zwingler, Lars Ritzka, and Elias Saad. And these are 4 guys that had succeeded for them, or had done a lot of great work for them in the Zweite Bundesliga last season. And he reformatted it into a 3-4-3. And from that point onward, I'd say that St. Pauli were definitely the superior side. In point of fact, that Zwingler and Ritzka, who were the replacement wingbacks, they both scored, and they provided a lot of impetus up the wing there. So yeah, I'm still very, very optimistic about St. Pauli's prospects in the coming season, despite this sort of close shave. I think that they played a determined side that has a lot of talent on it, a lot of experience on it, and they had some problems with some of their new actors being really ready for their debut for competitive football. I still expect a lot of good things from St. Pauli this season. I don't know. Do you agree?
It's a tough one, but I was just going to say, I think the fact that Pauli did go weak in this game a little bit, I feel as though I think we will see most of those guys that came off the bench start next week. I really do. I think I don't know whether that was a fitness issue or whether they wanted it to be fully fit for the big kickoff next week against Heidenheim. I'm not sure, but like I think the likes of Afolayan, Dwigela, Ritska. We're going to get a few problems with pronunciation this season from St. Pauli if these guys are starting regularly. But yeah, I do believe we'll see Saad as well. I do believe the likes of these were key players last season, and I'd be very surprised if we don't see most of them line up next week in the opener. Do I see them doing well? It's tough. Yeah, I did have them as relegation more because I think the fact they lost Hurzela as well is absolutely massive for me. The man who basically built St. Pauli from like a kind of bottom half, mid-table, second league side to what they were basically, and he made them into a great side, a unit, a true fighting team with some great characters in there as well. The likes of Metcalf, Irvine. I mean, they're going to be worth watching next season. They're cracking characters, the Australian pair. But yeah, I do believe that Pauli will compete, but will it be enough? That's the problem. Most people seem to be tipping Pauli to do better than Kiel, but I actually went the other way. I've got a feeling that Kiel are a little bit more settled, and I actually fancy Kiel to do better than Pauli. But a lot of people disagree with me on that. So we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them. I mean, I think they'll entertain. I think they'll score goals, but they probably need to turn the Bollentor into a real kind of a fortress in my eyes. I don't think they're going to get many points away from home, but if they can turn the home stadium into like a real kind of fortress, then they could stay up. But the relegation's interesting this year because, as you mentioned, a lot of the teams at the bottom, they have had good transfer windows, the likes of Bochum, Pauli. But it's the coaching as well. We've seen many times over the years that coaching is important, and whether the coaches are good enough, we'll just have to wait and see for the likes of those teams. But it's definitely going to be an interesting season at the bottom as well as the top this season. So yeah, I just want to close, Peter, by saying, were there any other games that really stood out for you this weekend?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about as we head into the season here. Of course, the Bundesliga campaign gets kicked off next weekend. I'll go ahead and just summarize a few things from the fixture list here. Of course, we had a successful debut at Bayern for Vincent Kompany, who speaks excellent German. I thought in the presser I was just incredibly impressed. My God, he hasn't played in Germany since 2008. He still speaks great German. A brace from Thomas Müller. A surprisingly, well, not so surprisingly good debut from Gladbach. They also had a massive transfer window, and Kevin Sturger, the former Bochum talisman, is running the play there as a 10. We had a all too easy debut for Leipzig and Hoffenheim. They were all over their opponents. Not Hoffenheim, Heidenheim, excuse me. It was a 4-1 victory for Leipzig and a 4-0 victory for Heidenheim. A little bit surprised to see Heidenheim do that because they've lost a lot of key players in this past season. Leipzig are, of course, lined up almost exactly as they always are in that 4-2-2-2. So we had that pretty close shave for Bo Svensson in his FC Union debut. There's a lot of ingoing and outgoing transfer rumors with Union. Of course, Horst Held is in charge of the Eisernen now. So, yeah, we got that. Holstein Kiel also prevailed in their opening Pokal fixture over Alemannia Aachen by the same scoreline that St. Pauli prevailed. They also came back and won late with a brace from Rosenboom, who is a player that I personally have never heard of. I don't know about you, Mark. We have to talk about Dortmund, of course. That was a special Pokal fixture because Phoenix Lübeck couldn't host the game, so they held it at the Volksparkstadion there in Hamburg before 50,000 spectators. So I mean, I was wondering, I just couldn't believe I was watching an opening round Pokal fixture, but the Bundesrepublik is buzzing about Pascal Gross, who looked excellent in midfield alongside Emre Can, and he recorded 2 assists as well. In the Sunday action, Marx Nuremberg prevailed, as did my Kaiserslautern prevailed on Saturday afternoon. Did I mention the fact that Leverkusen, having beaten Kaiserslautern in the Pokal and beaten Stuttgart in the DFL Super Cup, have now won 2 consecutive trophies after being reduced to 10 men?
That's true.
That was kind of interesting. And of course, we're recording this on a Monday evening. It's Braunschweig, the Battle of the Eintrachts, Braunschweig and Frankfurt is still ongoing. But the big talking point from earlier today was a Keke Top hat trick for SV Werder Bremen. I guess who the hell needs Niklas Füllkrug or maybe even Marvin Duksch if you have this kid spearheading your attack for the Hanseaten. And Leipzig, actually, this is interesting. A lot of people may not know this, but in the last few years, the opening round Pokal fixtures of the people who, or of the 2 clubs who contested the Super Cup, were actually delayed, and part of that had to do with COVID. But there's actually going to be 2 more Pokal matches this week. Stuttgart will be facing Preußen Münster on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, Leverkusen is traveling to Carl Zeiss Jena, also in the east there. So there's 3 more Pokal fixtures that are going to be completed after this recording. So the opening of the Bundesliga campaign not quite over with yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And then the final thing is just to close this one, obviously, because mostly we focus on Bundesliga, but we want to do a little bit more on the Pokal in general this year. I mean, I just wanted to say who we fancy winning it. Obviously, myself, you, Rory and Runa all had a bit of a fun kind of thing on the WhatsApp group, didn't we, as well, about who we think are going to win it, who we think are going to be the shocks. I mean, myself and Runa both went with Mainz as the kind of, not really the shocks, but like the team that you wouldn't imagine to go far to maybe make the semis or even the final. Myself and Runa both went for Mainz. But I think all of you guys, you all went for Bayern Munich, didn't you? I mean, you believe that the Harry Kane curse will finally be broken in his, I think, his 13th year as a professional, basically, and Bayern Munich will win the Pokal. I personally went for Dortmund because I just feel as though Dortmund have had a brilliant transfer window in contrast to last year when I felt as though they made the Champions League final, but the transfers were awful last year, basically. But this year, Bayer, Guirassy, Anton, and also Pascal Gross, who I believe could even be the best signing of the 4, actually. I believe all 4 of them are excellent signings, really. And I feel as though they will get silverware. I have already kind of explained my concerns about Sahin as well, because I think the analogy I used the other day was basically it's like sacking your PE teacher, Terzic, and bringing in a less experienced PE teacher. That was what I felt like, because I feel as though neither of those men are really, they both have the air of the kind of young PE teacher, you know what I mean? Who, yeah, for me, Dortmund should have a top coach. That's my opinion. But I do have a few concerns, which is why I only tipped them to finish, I think, 3rd or 4th in the league. But I do believe they'll bring home Pokal glory this year. So, Peter, I just wanted to see why you went for Bayern, really. What makes you think Bayern are going to win it this year?
Well, they're overdue. They haven't won it in the last 3 years. And so there's also the matter that you mentioned Dortmund's transfer window, and I agree with you on Sahin. I completely, not only am I a Bochum apologist, but I've always been a Terzic apologist as well. I thought he was a good coach. I don't understand the move. I love Nuri Sahin as a player. He's a German footballing legend of sorts, but I don't understand why the coaching change at this point. But if you want to talk about Bayern's transfer window, good Lord. I mean, they brought in Michael Olise, they brought in Joe Palinha, they brought in Hiroki Ito. I mean, it's, you know, I think that they've brought in some huge high profile heavy hitters and addressed, you know, sort of all of the weak areas of the squad. And I mentioned Kompany's, you know, excellent German earlier on in the pod. I know that you and Rory did an entire show on Company, and I think that, you know, he wasn't. I know he was the seventh or eighth choice, you know, based on what Maxeva wanted to bring in, but I think he's the absolute right coach for this team. He's going to be more hands off. He's going to allow them to be more self-coached. He's not going to bring his ego into proceedings, and he can really, really communicate well with the players, based on the German that I've heard from him. So yeah, I mean that's that's my reasoning behind it. And I mean, if if you want me to give my first impressions of Nuri Sahin's tactics for Dortmund in this 4-1 victory over Lübeck on the weekend, it was damn confusing. I mean, I was going cross-eyed trying to figure out what exactly he was trying to do. And once he went with like the 5-striker set at the end, I'm like, all right, I give up. I don't know what he's trying to do exactly. And yeah, it was just a Pokal match, but I have concerns that Sahin doesn't really have a thesis for Dortmund at the moment. And look, the Pascal Gross signing is huge. The way that Pascal Gross works together with Emre Can in midfield, that has enormous potential. You know, a little bit of a fanboy thing for me too, because I really like Emre Can, and I've it's been hurtful for me to watch him struggle recently. So, I mean, that midfield is really good. Now that Julian Brandt is wearing the 10, he's a versatile player. He can go anywhere. But he had, you know, he had Gittens. It's not Bino Gittens anymore. It's Jamie Gittens working as a wing back, and then Ryerson, and he had a 3-4-3, and there was a 4-2-3-1, and then it was a 3-5-2. I just didn't understand what he was trying to do. So I think that there's a potential for Dortmund to stumble a little bit because, as usual, the squad is poorly balanced and there's not a set, you know, there's not set tactics here. Bayern, on the other hand, the squad is built with the weaknesses of last season in mind, and they have a very, very underrated coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a controversial one, Peter, because obviously in England he's the antithesis of rated. Basically, after his season in Burnley, their fans were basically baying for him to be fired for most of the season, and they basically were so happy and shocked when Bayern took him off their hands, effectively. And ironically, they've started the season in the Championship, I think, with a 4-1 and a 5-0 win, basically. So, yeah, but he's very divisive, isn't he, Company, which I'm sure we'll talk about more next week in the Bundesliga review. But, you know, you rate him. And also the signings as well are also kind of divisive too. Like some people think Olise is injury prone a little bit. Palhinha, was he just a one-season wonder at Fulham because he didn't do as well in the second season? So there's a lot of kind of ifs and buts with Bayern, but it's going to be so interesting to see it, isn't it? Like some people think they had a great window, other people are a little bit underwhelmed. So we'll have to see, won't we, what they can pull out and whether they can stop the juggernaut that is Bayer 04 Leverkusen this season. So yeah, Peter, I mean, it's been a great show, but we have to bring it to a close, I'm afraid. Yeah, but I'm sure it won't be long before we're meeting again for the next show. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, don't forget to check out our Twitter feed at Over the Bar FB and at Village Footy. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the show. And don't forget to turn on the notifications as well, because it'll tell you all the different shows that we provide. And also, we're going modern nowadays at Over the Bar. We're going for the Insta lifestyle. Yeah. So we want you guys to follow us on Instagram, because we want to build this a little bit more as well, due to certain other social media not meeting our standards at the minute. So yeah. Thank you very much, guys. It was an absolute pleasure again, and we will see you again. Well, Rory and Runa will see you again tomorrow for the fantasy show. See you then, guys. Thank you.